Yeah, the little untiny indie corner invites to some noise from Australia this time. Today's album review contains autism based disorders, year long recording sessions, and some strange sequence choices. I remember this band from a few singles in the noughties, but some of you might be wondering, who are the Vines? Although the Vines' debut album came out in 2003 and thus was Australia's most popular export of the garage revival bands, the story of this band goes as far back as 1991. Bandleader Craig Nichols and bassist Patrick Matthews met while jobbing as students at a McDonald's and began playing together as a duo, but soon were joined by drummer David Olive, a school friend of Matthews. They were now a proper band, first calling themselves Rishikesh, but quickly changed to the easier The Vines, playing music both influenced by bands from the 60s as well as the current grunge and alternative bands. During the first years of existence, they only played occasional gigs for fun, but in 1999 finally decided to record proper demos in a studio. Their song In the Jungle was picked up by an independent radio station in Sydney and caught the attention of the label Ivy League Records. In early 2001, the Vines embarked on their first national tour of Australia as a supporting act. Later that year, their Australian debut single was released, followed by Factory as their debut single in the UK, which was selected Single of the Week by the influential NME magazine. Eventually, the Vines recorded their debut album, Highly Evolved, in Los Angeles with indie producer Rob Schnapf, who had gained interest in the band after hearing one of their demo CDs. Signed to different labels in Australia, the UK, and the USA, the band finally saw the release of their debut in 2002. Meanwhile, they had replaced original drummer David Olive with Hamish Rosser and introduced a second guitarist, Ryan Griffiths. Highly Evolved reached number 11 in the US Billboard charts and went platinum in the band's home country, Australia. The band also won the ARIA Award for Breakthrough Artist for their single Get Free. Together with other breaking artists like The Strokes and The Hives, the Vines were counted by the press among the so-called The bands, ringing in a revival of a direct guitar-based, simple yet edgy rock sound that was inspired by garage rock and the crude proto-punk of bands like the Velvet Underground. Yet, frontman Craig Nichols early on gained the reputation of an erratic bandleader, showing sudden aggressive behavior against both band members and audience during some performances or damaging equipment, which led to the cancellation of TV and live appearances and caused tensions within the band. The Vines also recorded their second album with producer Rob Schnapf. It was called Winning Days. Released in 2004, it continued the band's style of 60s garage rock and grunge-informed alternative rock. The album barely missed the US top 20. Disputes within the band and mostly Craig Nichols' mental condition led to a cancellation of most of their tour dates in Australia, America, and Europe. In late 2004, Nichols faced assault and malicious damage charges in Sydney. He disclosed that he had autism spectrum disorder, which was seen as the cause for his aggressive outbreaks under stress. The third album, Vision Valley, followed nonetheless in 2006, featuring a new bass player after original member Ryan Matthews quit the band due to Nichols' increasingly erratic behavior. When promoting their fourth long player, Melodia, Nichols' psyche again was in such bad condition that the band had to cancel the planned tour dates. In 2012, Nichols even was arrested for domestic assault against his parents and resisting arrest. All the while, the band had been self-producing a new album between 2009 and 2011. And that was Future Primitive, finally released in the summer of 2011, with its colorful yet somehow dark cover artwork. The recording sessions and productions indeed took place in 2010 and 2011. First material, all written by Nichols, however, was already worked on by 2009. The development of this album, number 5, was so troublesome due to the aforementioned mental problems of Craig Nichols, and also the fact that the Vines at that point were without a record label, so they financed the recording sessions all by themselves. For the eventual release, however, they could sign to Sony Music Australia. We start with a loud, primal scream from the notorious Craig Nichols and launch directly into a loud alt rocker of an opening track. Get some action into the indie club, and thus was also chosen as one of 2 singles from this album. In terms of loud, unkempt, snotty rock music, Gimme Love does everything right.
Give me love, give me love, give me love. Must I repeat it? Give me love, give me love, give me love. Till I can see it. Beat down, I'm saying so. Calling out, 'cause I need someone.
But the Vines can do mellow, tender, and tuneful too, as demonstrated with Leave Me in the Dark, which brings in a dreamy, lush 60s pop tone. Candy Flippin' Girl changes into a higher gear again with driving, more modern sounding guitars and a reverb heavy production that adds a bit of a psychedelic haze. The lyrics on this album are all very simplistic and the song lengths are very concise. AS4 comes along more acoustic, maybe like a late 90s Britpop band. Overall, the song is more melancholic, ravens calling out to the poetic eye. AS might stand for Autumn Shades, which is frequently repeated in the song. It's a nice atmospheric track. Following the band's approach of fast song, slow song, we next get the Brush Weird Animals, which is the punkiest track on the record. It tells everything it needs to in 2 minutes and still finds the time for a slow break before the end. The lyrics seem to depict a state of complete loss of motivation.
What we gonna take? Till we overcome. Hey! What we gonna say? Second time again.
Track 6 is the catchy Cry, a fine slice of indie rock with a bit of 60s jingle jangle vibes. Again, the lyrics refer to emotional turmoil and a downbeat mood, yet this song is quite infectious. Apparently no single, but in my opinion, Cry is one of the best tracks of the entire album.
But
The next cut is the title track, Future Primitive. Again, gruff alt rock, this time with a bit of electronic effects in the mix. Nichols sings about being somehow alien and alone, a future primitive who came from the sky. Allegedly, in real life, he is a person refusing to use mobile phones or social media, for example. So maybe this also resonates within those lyrics. It's a cool track, but maybe not what I would have chosen as a single to promote the album. Then we take a trip with the band to Riverview Avenue in the form of a mid-tempo indie rock tune with typical strummed guitar and some yelling from Nichols. A bit repetitive, but solid. Number 9, Black Dragon is one of the heavier tracks. Cool drumming and percussion, plus some psychedelic ambient ending. We don't exactly learn what that Black Dragon is, but it provides room enough for everyone when you're down and need some fun. At this point into the record, the album doesn't offer particularly new musical ideas, sound, or style, but all of the tracks pass by so quickly that it doesn't hurt. After a noisy, fast track, you guessed it, all that you do is a more tuneful, slower one again. It starts with harmony vocals, then an acoustic guitar comes in, and overall, this song gives me Britpop feelings again. What makes this song noteworthy is that it turns electronic psych pop midway through. Funnily enough, the next track, called Outro, isn't the last track, and at 3 minutes and 47 seconds, it's one of the longest cuts on the album. It's basically just sound effects plus drumming and some elements from tracks we've heard before. And it might have worked as an actual outro, but with 2 more proper songs following, this track is rather completely unnecessary filler. Goodbye, another obvious title for an album closer, also isn't the last song. This is a frail acoustic ballad, only with vocals and an acoustic guitar. Even though it is a simple song, this is one of the few moments on the album with a more heartfelt emotional depth. Future Primitive, however, really ends with a full band rocker that screws the world. STW is more gruff indie rock that shows 2 fingers to common rules and expectations and everyone, maybe. So a classic rock and roll attitude with a wall of massively distorted guitars in the mix. It's a decent alt rock track, but the sequencing of those last 3 songs really leaves me a bit confused. It would have made more sense in terms of album structure or, flow to switch them around and first have STW, then the quiet goodbye, and if need be, outro as a proper outro, though one could leave that one out entirely. Anyways, that's the track order we got. Future Primitive only had any chart success in Australia, making it to number 24 there. In the musical landscape of 2011, this kind of guitar music would no longer be exactly revolutionary or exciting for a younger audience, and this album also isn't about a grand production or clever production and becoming a timeless rock classic. This is rather meant as a little easily consumable bag of tracks, just an unaspiring indie rock album. And personally, I often have a soft spot for such easygoing, on the side albums to just listen to for fun. And Future Primitive delivers in that regard if you are into simplistic, energetic indie rock with a bit of an edge at times. Even the weaker tracks cannot really attract negative attention because they pass by so quickly. Is this the Vines' best album? Probably not, but it's also in no way worse than their better known first two albums, and some of the tracks on Future Primitive even add a bit of variety to the band's songwriting and sound. So, if you are looking for a palate cleanser with guitars, something to enjoy without having to concentrate too much on the music, Future Primitive is the right kind of album. The Vines, in my mind, are one of those where are they now cases. Allegedly, they are still around, but only really active or sporadically active as a live band in Australia. After Future Primitive, they released two or three more albums, but we haven't heard any new material or any official releases from the band since, I believe, 2018. So, more a kind of band that has, slipped under the radar. They are not the most essential of those garage revival or indie rock revival bands, but check them out if you feel in a early 2000s rock mood. And I will now go and check out what I will do for the next Murdoch Music Minute. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching.